Okay, so we're gonna talk. Um, so I realized today that actually within the last hour, probably, that I had a family, I had a collage of family photos in one of my closets in my home before my divorce that mysteriously went missing. Um, and um, and I'm fairly certain that it went missing around the time that Mike was in my life, was in my marriage, was involved in my marriage. Um, and I think I've connected a lot of dots here about what really happened behind my back. Part of what was really going on behind my back. Both when Mike was around and then when Heather's family was around, when Dave was around, when Heather's sister was around. Um, in that everybody gathered round and judged my father, who, uh, was diagnosed with MS, struggled with his own job stuff. Was diagnosed with MS when I was 13 years old. Um, he was in his 30s. Um, and um, and that was a phase of his life. My father wasn't somebody. My father made a lot of mistakes as a parent, and he was trying to figure things out as a man. But it was hard for him. Um, and I don't think it was hard for him in the same way that I struggled to figure things out. In that, I don't know if it was that he was struggling to figure out what he wanted to do as much as I think he was struggling to figure out what he wanted to invest his time in. And I don't mean, for a purpose or whatever. I think that my father was just somebody who was naturally fleeting of interest in a lot of different things. And he's creative, he's artistic. He was a maintenance man. He was a fence builder. He was a delivery driver for Airborne Express. He drove school buses for a while. And I think he drove for RTD. I think that's true. And my father was somebody that he made a lot of mistakes as a parent. And as a husband, he made mistakes too. He definitely wasn't, he made mistakes. Both of my parents made a lot of mistakes. Both of them did. But my father was diagnosed with MS young, and it was pretty severe. And he was diagnosed with MS around the age where a lot of his life experience and work experience and education and everything could have led him down a path of eventual discovery of something that he wanted to do sustainably one way or another, or maybe not. But his MS diagnosis kind of cut him off at the knees at that phase of his life. And my relationship with my dad at the time, I struggled to have one with him. And it wasn't because I didn't want one with my father. It was just because that's how things were in the family. I didn't really have too much of a working relationship with most of my family. That's just how things got, unfortunately. Some of my school friends met my father. Gabe met my father, spent some time with my father and I, around my father at least. Fong met my father. At least a couple of times. He was around my dad a couple of times. My father was somebody who was active in my elementary school. He would show up for events. He would show up for field trips. He would show up for other stuff. My elementary school friends got to know my father, at least in that he was present in my life. He went to the powwow with me that I went to. I was invited to by my friend Nash when I was in elementary school. Um, and there were there was other stuff. My father knew Brandon and Evan, um, and their family while I was friends. Nathaniel knew my father. Spent time at my house around my family and met my father and everything. My dad was somebody who loved music. I actually shared a lot of music of my father's with Heather, uh, and put that music on her running playlists. And there was music that she was only exposed to for the first time because of my dad. And she actually enjoyed a lot of it, to the point where she kept that stuff on her running playlists for a long time. And it was actually really nice to be able to share that with her, uh, and to share that with her in a way where she actually got enjoyment out of it. Um, I actually wanted to introduce Heather to my father. I did. Um, uh, while he was still alive. I never got the chance to do that, but I wanted to. I wanted to show him that, that I had found the person that I wanted to build a future with. I wanted to show him that, that I was still, I was on my way to figuring my life out. That I had gotten healthy, that I had gotten control over my health, that I had become a different person, a better person than I was, and that um, I was doing things that were important to me, and that I had found things in my life that were important to me, and that I was investing time and energy into them, and that I was, and everything else. But so I think that part of what happened behind my back was that Mike got a hold of information about my father while he was with my ex-wife. And I think that became a point of abuse. An easy target for Mike to harp on. Potentially other people who were aware of what was going on with Mike, who were involved with what was going on with Mike. I think that Heather's sister is also somebody who was involved with that when Mike was around. I remember when I was in San Diego, I kept getting a pop-up on Spotify, an ad on Spotify that said, "Who needs all of these MS relapses?" over and over again. Mixed with, vague threats to my life and everything, not unlike what I sometimes still get from time to time with YouTube from Heather's sister. I think Heather's sister was involved with that stuff, was involved with that judgment of my father and thus of me. Um, and I also now contextually know that Dave Withers, he called me trash. And I think that he called me trash with the knowledge of who my father was. I don't know if he ever really said anything about my father or not, but if he called me trash, he called where I came from and the people who gave me life and who raised me trash, and their parents trash, and their family trash. And effectively what that means is Dave Withers is no different and no better than Mike Doan. And Mike, I was not wrong in that Mike is Dave's real son. I wasn't wrong about it. And that effectively I have been judged as trash, I have been abused, and I have been exploited for monetary gain, for power gain by Dave. Effectively, I'm either trash or I'm to be exploited by Dave Withers. or both, while at the same time Dave wants to pretend that he's my father, or is in any way related to me, or is in any way comparable to who I am. Dave has no he has no moral compass. He has no integrity of character. He is abusive. He is a bad person. Heather and her mother deserved a better person than Dave in both of their lives. They still do. Matter of fact, I hope that Dave isn't in either of their lives, but I know he is. I know he's at least in Heather's life, which is unfortunate because I think and I know that Dave is a bad person. In addition to that, Dave effectively insulted me, the son of a man who struggled to figure out his job and his education, struggled as a father in a sick family, and then was diagnosed with MS in his 30s, and then died in his 50s from complications from MS. He judged me as trash as the son of that man. And Dave thinks that he's the type of person who should wield power and control over other lives and influence over other lives and over the world itself. And it's simply not the case, and it never will be the case. Dave needs to understand that he will never be a politician. He will never wield power beyond what he's already had in his career. If he's not retired, he should retire. If he's not retired, I don't know how his coworkers respect him. I'm fairly certain that he retired to devote himself full-time to stealing from me and pretending to be a much better person than he could ever be. To try to send off, or jumpstart a political career that simply will never be. In addition to that, I believe that Mike Doan infiltrated my family with the help of Dave, with the same basis of judgment about my father. And my mother doesn't have any respect for my father. And my mother sees my father when she looks at me. In fact, I think that that's so much the case that she will never be able to respect me as the adult man that I am, and will only ever be able to allow herself to see me as a young son of hers, a very young man of hers. Because I think it's difficult for her to consider me as an adult man, because if she considers me as an adult man, it makes it too comparable to her to just seeing my father every time she looks at me, every time she speaks to me. And she has absolutely no respect for him. And I believe that that's why she was willing to effectively betray me by being around Mike in any way that she was. I believe that that's why her friends, my mother's friends, were potentially involved with being around Mike as well, because my mother more than likely told all of them a bunch of stories about how, about how low of an opinion she has about my father. And I think that that's effectively what happened behind my back a long time ago in a group setting between Mike, Heather's sister, some of other people in Heather's family, and maybe even some of Heather's friends. I don't really know, but I think that it was just a gathering of that judgment of my dad projected onto me. I also think that because my brother is who he is and had the relationship he had with my father, my brother is cut of the same cloth to some extent. I'm going to stop this and keep recording because I'm running out of time.